Hello. It's great to be here. Wow, this is a full room since I sat down. What a conference this has been. It's been a real honor to be here and to spend the next little bit of time with you. This has been great for me. I've just been really inspired by the talks that I've been to so far, the discussions that I've had with many of you over the last 3 days. I hope I can extend the wisdom of the conference and begin to bring us in for a landing here. I think that many of the themes that I'll bring up actually connect with some of the talks that I've seen, including Tim's great talk from just a few moments ago. This notion of superpowers will certainly emerge in my talk here. I think a lot and work a lot on design leadership. It's part of my job at IBM, and I've got some new material that I'm going to roll out to you here, so I'm looking forward to getting your feedback on that. One of the talks that I've seen in the last year or so that's really resonated with me was a talk by Kate Aronowitz from Google Ventures. It was at a conference called Brainstorm Design in Singapore last March. And Kate put this number up on the screen, 66,000. And it was sort of a mysterious number, and then she went on to explain that her team at Google Ventures had done a survey of LinkedIn job postings for executive design leaders, and they found 66,000 job postings for executive design leaders on LinkedIn. That just stopped me in my tracks. I mean, that was an unbelievable number to me. And in fact, my first reaction was, oh my God, Kate, you've got a horrible typo in your slide deck because somehow you've added a 0 or maybe even 2 zeros to that number. It can't possibly be that. But she went on to explain it, and she really elaborated on this number, and it's just a staggering number for me. So this basically says that virtually every company in the world is looking for an executive design leader. So when we talk about this notion of seat at the table, I mean, this is the evidence, right? These companies that even a couple of years ago were not investing in design are now not only investing in it, but at the very highest levels of their company. The next question I had was, who are the 66,000 people who are going to fill these jobs? Where are they? What are they doing? What have they been doing? What skills do they have? And are they going to be prepared to take on these new roles when they get them? And that idea, those set of questions kind of frames my talk today. I want to rewind the tape and tell you a little bit about myself and my origins as a designer. I've been a designer for more than 30 years. My earliest entry point into design was that I loved to draw pictures as a child. That's what I love to do. And I really wanted to find a way to make a living by making pictures. And so I went to university and studied visual communications. I quickly migrated toward graphic design as I launched my career in the late 80s. That was a time when graphic design was really just sort of taking shape as a professional practice. I went on to do many things as a designer. I was a partner in a small design practice in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I was living and working at the time for many years. I helped to launch an entrepreneurial venture in the healthcare space out of that design practice. I was an educator at many academic design programs. I was a community leader with AIGA, the Design Association in the US. And all of these different things, these different roles that I played as a designer had one kind of common thread. I was always working in a very small environment, either as a solo practitioner or as a member of a small team with a very focused mission. So it was a bit of a shock to my system when in 2013 I had an opportunity to join IBM and to help launch and lead their renewed program of user experience design that was just getting out of the starting gates in 2013. Now, IBM is anything but a small team. It is a massive company, one of the largest and most established companies in the world. It's over 100 years old. IBM has almost 400,000 people in 170 countries around the world. There are literally thousands of IBM products and services, deeply technical products and services, in virtually every business sector and industry imaginable. It's a mind-bogglingly complex and dense company and organization, far beyond anything that I had experienced to that point. So I really had to rely on or retool the skills that I had developed to that point in my career. I needed to understand how IBM was organized. This wild complexity, I needed to decipher it and make sense of it. I needed to understand the IBM business model. How does the company make money? Who does it compete with, and why? I needed to rebuild my network. I needed to find my people out in the company and to get to know them and build trust with them. And that took a lot of time and a lot of energy to really rebuild those skills for myself. Now, I'm not going to go deep into the program of design that we've built since 2013 at IBM. We have, but I'll give you a few highlights. We've added more than 2,000 designers to the company since that year. We have a global network now of over 50 design studios at IBM, including this beautiful new building here in Milan, our IBM studio in Milan, where I spent some time just a couple of days ago with our team there. We have rolled out a suite of design practices, including our enterprise design thinking platform, which we've used to train more than 200,000 IBMers in this practice of human-centered work and collaborative work and paying more attention to the people that we are building products and services for. In my role as Vice President of Design at IBM, I oversee design leadership, design practices, and our community of designers at the company. Those 2,000 plus designers who are embedded across the company and around the world. So the details of my journey may differ from the details of yours, but if Chris's poll that he did earlier of hand raising is any indication, we've all traveled kind of a similar trajectory. An early career as hands-on practitioners, followed by kind of an organically expanding set of roles and responsibilities, and then suddenly and unexpectedly, in many cases, dropped into a leadership role for which we have very little formal training. I think that's a very common scenario. It's something that when I talk to my peers, it's certainly the case, and when I look around this room, it seems to also be the case. One of my favorite books of the last year, and if you're looking for a good read, this is one of them. It's a really phenomenal book for managers of any kind, but especially design managers and leaders, by Julie Zhu from Facebook. And she just does a great job of kind of opening up her own journey of being a design leader. And this quote really kind of encapsulates that. The responsibilities of managing people felt like an enormous leap from creating user interfaces or writing code. Everything felt new and uncomfortable. And when I read that, I was just like, yes, Julie, you've nailed it. Everything felt new and uncomfortable. So this all poses a question for me as we're finding ourselves in these new leadership roles in really complex organizations. What are the missing skills required to effectively play senior business leadership roles in complex organizations? And how do we acquire them in the middle of our careers? Now, I 100% agree that we need to be as smart as possible about the businesses we are helping to run. But there's a major assumption in this statement, in this question, that I want to challenge. And that is that the traditional and accepted skills of business leadership are, in fact, the best way to lead a business in the 2020s. And I did some, I did some sort of investigation on that question to see how solid sort of those traditional and accepted approaches to business leadership are. And I found some interesting stuff from the Sloan School of Management at MIT, and they did a study where they talked to thousands of business leaders. And here's what they found. They found that only 12% of those business leaders strongly agree that their leaders have the right mindset to lead them forward. They found that less than 10% of those business leaders strongly agree that their organizations have leaders with the right skills to thrive in what they call the digital economy, this new era of business that we find ourselves in. So those are some worrisome numbers if I'm a business leader right now, that the way that we've been doing business, the way that we've been leading our businesses is not suitable for the way businesses need to operate in this current era. Forbes magazine extended that. They said today's business schools are busy teaching and researching 20th century management principles and, in effect, leading the parade towards yesterday. Harvard Business Review, business schools are on the wrong track. So there's a mounting body of evidence here that those traditional and accepted skills of business leadership are not where we should be going. That chasing after the established version of business leadership is not what we should be doing. Yes, we need to be credible. We need to have a credible understanding of how our business runs. But I think it's a grave mistake to simply adopt the flawed conventions of the way that businesses have been run in the past. Interestingly, there's a clue in this article from the Sloan School that gives us some insight into perhaps how businesses could be or should be run in this era. They said, we identified a number of leadership teams that are actually embracing new ways of working and leading. And many of them are increasing transparency, demonstrating authenticity, emphasizing collaboration and empathy. Transparency, authenticity, collaboration, and empathy. Those sound like the qualities of a great design leader. What MIT Sloan and these other sources are saying is that in order to lead effectively in this era of the digital economy, we need a different set of skills than have been valued and taught previously. I argue that most designers actually possess the skills to effectively lead in this transformative era. Yet an interesting thing, I observe an interesting trend in my peers and in myself, and that is that there seems to be a natural tendency to relegate our design skills rather than elevate them as we climb the corporate ladder and as we take on these new responsibilities. Based on the evidence that I've been showing you, that seems to be a huge missed opportunity. So I want to reframe that central question that I posed earlier this way. How do we retain, enhance, and maximize our unique differentiating skills as designers? To use Tim's word from a moment ago, how do we find our superpowers and bring them to these new roles as business leaders? Well, the first thing we need to do is understand what our superpowers really are. And for each of us, the answer to that is different. Because we all have a different origin story. I just told you mine, that I started out making pictures, and that in a long sort of circuitous way kind of led me to a career as a designer. But how do we use design as a boost rather than a barrier? So as a starting point, I think it's useful to think about these superpowers, these unique and differentiating skills that designers possess, and how we use them to solve complex problems. So here is a very incomplete list of some of those common design superpowers that I see in myself and in my peers. Many of us are empathizers. We need to understand the people that we are designing for in order to do our jobs. We're prototypers and makers. That's how we solve problems and how we think things out. We're system thinkers. We think about problems in a holistic way, and we're able to connect dots that others might not see. We're divergent thinkers. We're not satisfied with the first idea that we come up with. We want to push that and challenge that and think of other ideas. We're facilitators, storytellers, critiquers, detailers, all of these ways that we bring our unique skills to the work that we do. So how do these superpowers get applied to the everyday tasks of design leadership? Well, I want to show you a couple of examples of how they emerge in the work that I'm doing in my role at IBM. This is a picture of my desk at IBM Studios in Austin, Texas, where I am based. It's kind of the home base of our global design program there. We have about 400 designers in our Austin facility. And this is kind of horrifying to see at this scale just how messy my desk is. So apologies for that. I was saying earlier that when I joined IBM, it was important for me to understand how the company was organized. That at first it felt so overwhelmingly complex and complicated, and I just couldn't figure out how I couldn't create a mental model for myself. Now, that large artifact that you see on the wall behind my desk is actually a map of the design and business leadership at the company. All of our 2,000 plus designers are mapped out across that wall. And it's color-coded. The blue sticky notes across the top are our senior business leaders in each of our lines of business. They are what we call general managers or GMs. They're basically the CEO of those business lines. The yellow sticky notes just below those are our most senior design managers in each of those lines of business. Below that, you'll see orange and pink sticky notes for our senior individual contributors, our lead practitioners. And then design ops leaders and other team leads and so on are mapped out lower in the map. The map is an ever-changing prototype, and I refer to it every day as a way to make sense of the company. It might be natural to dump all of this material into an Excel spreadsheet and tuck it into a folder on my laptop, but by making it a very visual and visible artifact, by expressing it as a piece of low-fidelity design, something interesting has happened on my team. And you can see it in this picture. In the lower left there is my teammate Eunice Chung, and she's doing what members of my team in Austin do every day. This scene literally happens all the time. The map has become an essential daily resource of uniting our global design community and elevating our practice of designing for our users, those designers across the company. This simple design-driven artifact has changed the way my team behaves and the way we operate. It's brought us closer to the people we are serving, and it's become one of the foundational artifacts for the primary work that we do. That work includes a brand new internal website for our design community, which features our senior design leaders, and our design career playbook, which charts the complete career journey for designers at IBM, from a university intern all the way to a senior design executive. Now, one of the ways that this artifact really extends deeper into the work that I do, and one of the ways that I work with our community of design leaders at IBM is by facilitating a series of meetings between the blue sticky notes and the yellow sticky notes. Those senior business leaders, those general managers, and the most senior design managers in that business division. There are roughly 24, as you can see here, about 24 general managers across the company. Each runs a line of business, as I said before, and each of them employs a staff of designers and design leaders, which can range from maybe a dozen or so, all the way up to several hundred. In each division, that's happening in each division. So that's what's kind of charted out on the map here. Now, the relationship between that senior design manager and that general manager is a very important one, and it's one that I pay a lot of attention to in my role overseeing design leadership. I do a lot of coaching with those senior design managers to help them figure out how to best manage that relationship with their general manager. It's a very important one. That general manager is their investor, right? So these meetings that I conduct with them and that I facilitate with them once or twice a year become a really important way to grow that relationship. We call these meetings design program reviews, and they happen once or twice a year, usually at key points in our budgeting cycle. All told, we will run 30 to 40 of these reviews across the company every year. So over multiple years, we've run close to 200 of these meetings, and it's become an important laboratory, really a laboratory of design leadership that has been an important way for me to kind of observe some key aspects of the practice. As I work with our design leaders to prepare these program reviews, it's important to approach the meetings not just as business meetings, where we're discussing financial details and roadmaps, but as a user experience design problem. And that means we have to approach the GM, these are those 25 GMs across the company, we need to approach them as our primary user and to understand them in a deep and human way. So, how do we do that? Well, we do user research, and we have found a number of common themes and characteristics of our general managers that help us design that particular user experience. First of all, we know that they're really busy people. That's a no-brainer. They don't have a lot of time. So these design program reviews are a tight, concise 30 minutes. They happen twice a year, as I said, usually in advance of key budgeting cycles. We know that they make decisions based on data. They are not gut-feeling people. So that's how we build the discussion. We build the discussion around data points. We know that they're pretty opinionated. We know that they're very competitive. They like to have a goal, and when we give them one, they tend to respond to it. They also hate it when they're behind or they're perceived to be behind their peers in other businesses. They've got a finely tuned bullshit meter, and there's no faking it with this crowd. So all of that goes into how we construct these 30-minute meetings. It all comes together in a tight 6-slide presentation deck. We use the same deck template for each business, and that helps us scale the process and easily track the trends across businesses. These decks get updated on a quarterly basis, so we've always got current data. And now we have a growing catalog of design leadership data that helps us run the design organizations company-wide. So this is kind of a table of contents of what is included in those decks. We are talking about staffing numbers, how many designers do they have, and what's the ratio between those designers and other technical disciplines like engineers. We want to know, we're a global organization, so we want to know where these designers are sitting, where they're located. We want to know what is the shape of your organization from an experience level and a career path level. We do a lot of tracking of design thinking expertise across our businesses, so we want to look at what are the levels of design thinking practice. We want to look at attrition and overall sort of health of the team. And all of that, we want to point toward user sentiment measurements that we are tracking in various ways also. And that becomes that narrative then of all of these data points leading up to hopefully an encouraging trend of user sentiment becomes a pretty compelling narrative for those business leaders. And it all comes together essentially as the roadmap for their future design investment. One more point that we know about these general managers. We know that if we do a good job with all of this, they will in fact believe. And they will invest and continue to increase their investment in design. And I want to share with you one of the outcomes of a particular program review that we recently had. This was with the general manager of a division of our global technology services business. You don't need to know anything about that. But it happens to be a part of IBM that has been a bit slower to adopt design. So this review that we had with this general manager last year was actually the first time that we'd interacted with him. So the meeting was myself, my boss, Phil Gilbert, this general manager, and the senior design manager of that division. And they have about 12 designers on their team right now. The team is gasping for air. You know, the team is just completely understaffed. They need help. And that was the big pitch of this meeting with this particular GM. Also present was the chief financial officer for that particular division. So here's what that general manager had to say. He said, "I believe that user experience will allow us to win in the market." He said this at the end of the meeting. So here's this guy. I mean, he was a sort of a passive believer. I don't think he was like an antagonist toward design, but he was never like a cheerleader for it. So now he's really articulating his point of view on user experience and design in the meeting. And he goes on to say this. He says, "This review has helped me understand the need for design resources. We have the ability to support this plan. We can double this design team with no problem." He turned to his CFO in the meeting and he authorized doubling the size of the team right there on the spot. So, as I said earlier, we now have over 2,000 designers across the company. That number is more than double the number that we were projecting when we launched the program back in 2013. So this trend, this pattern of general managers kind of responding really positively to this way of interacting with them has played out over and over across the company to a pretty dramatic effect. That means that IBM business leaders have seen the value of design in a big way, and they're responding by investing in it. A key reason for this is the way that we are building our relationship with our business leaders by leading with our unique design skills, our unique design behaviors, and these design artifacts. We're tapping into our design superpowers to drive the way we are leading these complex businesses. We're understanding these business leaders as users, and we're thinking at a system level. We're prototyping, we're visualizing, and we're telling great stories. All of those design characteristics that I listed before. And, as you can see, we're seeing great results. I've got a couple of minutes here. I just want to reflect on a couple of things that I've heard over the last few days here from the conference. One talk in particular really resonated with me and I think connects with in an interesting way with with some of the themes that I've discussed here, and that was Tasha Lutva's talk yesterday. Tasha from Microsoft. I don't know whether you're in the room, Tasha, but it was an excellent talk and really inspiring to me. She was talking about culture, and she was talking about this great Women in Design program that they have at Microsoft, which actually I've had contact with because we've hosted them in our Austin studio at IBM. And Tasha said, interestingly, she said one of her slide headers was treat team culture like product. And I thought that was really insightful, and it really connects here to what I'm trying to express to you, that, I mean, my version of it would be treat design leadership like product, right? Don't change the way we are behaving as leaders because we think we need to, but instead do what we do best and apply it in this new setting. There was another thread of Tasha's talk that I also want to bring up before I close out here, and that was around diversity and inclusion. And she put some stats up on the screen that were just sobering and troubling and not surprising because I knew them, but 3% African American designers in the U.S. These are according to AIGA numbers. 11% women in leadership roles in design. That's bullshit. I don't know. I'm sick of this. You know, our numbers, thankfully, are better than that at IBM, but they're not as good as they should be. And everyone in this room has the power to influence those numbers. And I really want to challenge you guys to really think about that. You know, we're all leading teams. Some of them are small. Some of us are leading big organizations. Every one of us can help influence these numbers. In my case, I am directly accountable for the diversity numbers in our design leadership community at IBM. In fact, I am being measured on that. My performance over the year ahead will be dependent on whether those numbers change in a positive direction. That's a tough thing, man. It's a tough fucking problem, but I welcome that. I welcome being accountable for that. And it's a hard problem that we've been working on for decades. It's not going to change overnight, but we can change these numbers. And I hope that we all walk away from this conference thinking about ways that we can do better with that. So let me close out here. We're in the midst of, as this conference is evidence, we're in the midst of an extraordinary time for our profession. The opportunities for design and designers have never been greater. Design has indeed, and at long last, gained a seat at the table. And this means we need to show up in new ways as leaders of very complex organizations. As we're retooling our skills to assume these new roles, let's not lose track of the unique and differentiating skills we all possess, those design superpowers that are at the core of us all. And let's be confident that those skills used with intent are, in fact, the best way for us to lead our businesses forward. Thanks for your attention. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.